Okay, we're going to continue on in our Father's Word. This is 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 23. And within the oracle he made 2 cherubims of the olive tree, each 10 cubits high. And 5 cubits was the one wing of the cherub, and 5 cubits the other wing of the cherub. Now Satan was created by God to be a cherubim, one of the protecting cherubims. But Satan got the big head, and he didn't want to protect the mercy seat. Satan wants to sit on the mercy seat as a cherub, a little g God. And the 5 cubits was the one wing of the cherub, and 5 cubits the other wing of the cherub, from the uttermost part of the one wing until the uttermost part of the other were 10 cubits. And the other cherub was 10 cubits. Both the cherubims were of one measure and one size. And remember, God gave Satan free will. Those creatures, the Zun and the Zoe, the protectors of God's throne, God didn't give them free will. Just like the archangels, he didn't give the archangels free will. They got to do what God tells them to do. But Satan, Ezekiel 28, God made Satan free and made Satan full measure with free will to decide to either love God or follow Satan. That's the only 2 choices you get while you're here on earth in the flesh. Now this is verse 25. And the other cherub was 10 cubits. Both the cherubs were of one measure and one side. The height of one cherub was 10 cubits, and so was the other cherub. And he set up the cherubims within the inner house. And they stretched forth the wings of the cherubim, so that the wings of the one touched the wall, and the wing of the other cherub touched the other wall. And their wings touched one another in the midst of the house. And he overlaid the cherubims with gold. And he carved all the walls of the house round about with carved figures of cherubims, palm trees, and open flowers, within and without. And the floor of the house he overlaid with gold, within and without. And for the entering of the oracle he made doors of olive tree. And the lintel and the side post were a 5th part of the wall. And the 2 doors were also of olive tree. And he carved upon them carvings of cherubims and palm trees and open flowers, and overlaid them with gold, and spread gold upon the cherubims and upon the palm trees. So also made he for the door of the temple post of olive tree, a 4th part of the wall. And the 2 doors were of fir tree. The 2 leaves of one door were folding, and the 2 leaves of the other door were folding. And he carved thereon cherubims and palm trees and open flowers, and covered them with gold, fitted upon the carved work. And he built the inner court with 3 rows of huge stone, and a row of cedar beams. And the 4th year was the foundation of the house of the Lord laid, in the month of Ziph. And in the 11th year, in the month of Bul, which is in the 8th month, was the house finished throughout all the parts thereof, and according to all the fashion of it. So was he 7 years in building it. Now this is 1 Kings chapter 7. But Solomon was building his own house 13 years, and he finished all his house. And he built also the house of the forest of Lebanon. The length thereof was 100 cubits, and the breadth thereof 50 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits, upon 4 rows of cedar pillars, with cedar beams upon the pillars. And it was covered with cedar above upon the beams that lay on 45 pillars, 15 in a row. And there were windows in 3 rows, and light was against light in 3 ranks. And all the doors and posts were square, with the windows, and the light was against light in 3 ranks. And he made a porch of pillars. The length thereof was 50 cubits, and the breadth thereof 30 cubits. And the porch was before them. And the other pillars and the thick beam were before them. Then he made a porch for the throne where he might judge, even the porch of judgment. And it was covered with cedar from one side of the floor to the other. And his house where he dwelt had another court within the porch, which was of the like work. Solomon made also a house for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had taken to wife, like unto this porch. All these were of costly stones, according to the measure of huge stones, sawed with saws within and without, even from the foundation unto the coping, and so on the outside toward the great court. And the foundation was of costly stones, even great stones, stones of 10 cubits and stones of 8 cubits. And above were costly stones after the measures of huge stones and cedars. And the great court round about was with 3 rows of huge stones and a row of cedar beams, both for the inner court of the house of the Lord and for the porch of the house. And King Solomon sent and fetched Hiram out of Tyre. He was a widow's son of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a worker in brass. And he was filled with wisdom and understanding, and cunning to work all works in brass. And he came to King Solomon, and wrought out all his work. For he cast 2 pillars of brass of 18 cubits high apiece, and a line of 12 cubits did compass either of them about. And he made 2 chapiters of molten brass to set upon the tops of the pillars. The height of one chapiter was 5 cubits, and the height of the other chapiter was 5 cubits. And the nets of checker work, and the wreaths of chain work, and the chapiters which were upon the top of the pillars, 7 for the one chapiter, and 7 for the other chapiter. And he made the pillars in 2 rows round about the one network to cover the chapiters that were upon the top with pomegranates. And so did he for the other chapiter. And the chapiters that were there upon the top of the pillars were of lily work of the porch, 4 cubits. And the chapiters upon the 2 pillars had pomegranates also above, over against the belly, which was by the network. And the pomegranates were 200, and rose round about upon the other chapiter. And he set up the pillars in the porch of the temple. And he set up the right pillar, and called the name thereof Jachin. And he set up the left pillar, and called the name thereof Boaz. And upon the top of the pillar was lily work. So was the work of the pillars finished. And he made a molten sea, 10 cubits from one brim to the other. It was round all about, and its height was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under the brim of it round about there were knobs compassing 10 and a cubit, compassing the sea round about. The knops were cast in 2 rows when it was cast. And it stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, 3 looking toward the west, 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east. And the sea was set upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward. And it was a hand breadth thick. And the brim thereof was wrought like the brim of a cup, with flowers of lilies. It contained 2,000 baths. And he made 10 bases of brass. 4 cubits was the length of one base, and 4 cubits the breadth thereof, and 3 cubits the height of it. And the work of the bases was on this manner. They had borders, and the borders were between the ledges. And on the borders that were between the ledges were lions, oxen,